Hello, hello. Today happens to be a Sunday. In June. So if I ever look back at them in the future, I can remember what I was doing June of 2025. Sounds crazy to even say that. Okay. Trying to get my clock up. Here we go. Put 10 minutes on the counter. Ooh la la, ooh la la, wow. Okay. We're still on the Barron Trump collection. We're starting today on page 1. I think that says 153. Page 153. Okay. This is the timer. And here we go. I can see. Okay. I can't read is the problem. I can't see what I'm reading. At one moment, his huge body turned upon its side, bent itself until head and tail met. At another, it arched itself in the air until its black back spanned the water like a bow. I now felt that it was time to act. Stand by the starboard launch, I called out to my men. Avast that blubbering. Already. Aye, came back from the gang. Lower away, then. I was not a whit too quick with my orders. The launch no sooner struck the water than the sea monster, after a series of terrible contortions, during which it almost seemed as if his huge body would snap in twain, began to disgorge the varied contents of his stomach. It doesn't help at all. First, shower after shower of many-colored fish of all sizes, from a hand's length to 3 cubits, filled the air. As they fell into the water, they calmly swam away, no doubt well pleased to find themselves in more agreeable surroundings. Thousands of shellfish, all kinds, sizes, and colors, then came flying forth, rattling their claws together as they fell into the water, as if in defiance of their huge foe that had been so unceremoniously called upon to give up the results of many a long hour's hunt. The living was followed by the dead, for now came forth both several wooden buckets, 3 old blankets, numerous bits of plank, rope ends, shreds of sail, paint pots, bundles of oakum, and wads of cotton, all of which he had picked up while following in the wake of our vessel. At last the man of straw was cast out high into the air with a deep grunt of satisfaction. After him came number 1 of the lost seamen. Number 2 and 3 were not slow in arriving. The launch made haste to pick them up, leaving their sick monster to recover his health and spirits as well as he might. Bulger received the rescued men with the wildest manifestations of delight, and clapping on all sail, away we bounded before a rattling breeze. To my infinite joy, the water now began to increase in warmth. Hour by hour, the rise in temperature, although slow, was steady. At length, my men, cried I to my crew, we are on the right track. Be patient. I promise you that before the sun has quenched his fire in the western sea, we shall cast anchor in Neptune's cauldron. My predictions came true to the very letter. Just as the last rays of sunlight were gliding the foam-crested waves of this mysterious sea. A long, low line of shore was sighted dead ahead, ending in a precipitous headland. Bearing away, we rounded this and found ourselves at the entrance of a large, landlocked bay or gulf, from different points in which huge columns of snow-white steam floated lazily skyward, twisting themselves in most fantastic shapes ere they vanished in the purple light. My men sent up a loud, long, lusty cheer as we sailed into Neptune's cauldron. As we drew near shore, to my great bewilderment, for I had not dared to think that living creatures could exist in these heated waters, I caught sight of moving things in the cauldron. Nay, there could be no doubt, for these heated waters were as limpid as mountain spring, and the bottom plainly visible 10 fathoms below. Fish of all colors and sizes floated hither and thither, while myriads of crabs, lobsters, and other queerly shaped crustaceans crawled about on the snow-white sands, following their leaders in long lines, like a procession of cardinals over the white marble pavement of some great city in the western world. I say crimson lines, for the heat of the water had clothed them all in suits of richest red. As I sat in the ship's launch on my way to shore, gazing dreamily down the waters, half dazed by these marvelous sights, a shoal of fish rose near the boat and turned their beautiful tinted sides for an instant to the cool air. To my amazement, I saw that their eyes were sightless, that the extreme heat of the waters had clouded their limpid orbs milk white and shut out the light forever. A cold chill crept over me, for the spectacle was as uncanny as if the carp had sprang from the elder baron's table and began to swim about in their native element once more. But the list of strange things was not exhausted, for as I drew nearer to the beach, you may imagine my mingled wonder and amusement at seeing scores of fish with their backs planted against the sand furrows, calmly fanning themselves with their broad, flat tails. Upon setting foot upon the shore, I was astonished to find the land, as far as the eye could reach, covered deep with millions and millions of eggs of different sizes, varying from that of a pigeon to that of an albatross or wild goose. In places, these eggs lay in heaps far higher than my head. In others, they were ranged in long lines, like white furrows turned by some gigantic cloth. Suddenly the truth dawned upon me. To these shores, vast flocks of seabirds came to lay their eggs year after year, attracted by the warmth of the atmosphere. There they could build their rude nests, and fill them with eggs, and enter upon the task of hatching out their young, when suddenly the heated waters, hurled by some gale or restless current, rise upon their resting places, and spreads death where life was just beginning, from cooking the countless thousands of eggs which filled their nests, and so on from year to year, until now I behold the work of 1,000 floods, which have in turn added their contribution to this vast stock. While standing on the shores of this wonderland one morning, gazing out across the streaming surface of Neptune's cauldron, several of my crew came running toward me with startled men and great outcry, all pointing skyward. I turned and looked in the direction indicated. A vast cloud, black and threatening, hung in the heavens. As I stood watching it, it broadened and widened until it fairly darkened the light of day. My men were now on their knees, uttering the most piteous lamentations, for they imagined the end of the world was at hand. I commanded them I apparently turned off my timer a long time ago. They covered the whole sky in inky pall. It was evident to me that they intended alighting upon the shore of the cauldron, and fearing lest their immense numbers in settling down might smother us, I called out to my men to stand by the ship's launch, for there was no time to lose. For, as we pushed out from the shore, tens of thousands of these birds, a species of crow but twice the size of those at home, began to settle down in long rows as far as the eye could reach. For the first, now I noticed that every crow held something in its claws. I looked again and saw that each of these birds carried an immense mollusk fully as large as a watchman's club and something the same shape. Imagine my mingled surprise and amusement upon observing that those in the first row were now making for the water's edge. Approaching cautiously, each crow thus thrust his mullet into the shoal waters of the cauldron, and stood by, with eyes sparkling with joyful anticipation to watch for results. He had not long to wait. Unaccustomed to the great heat of the water, the mollusk soon began to open its shell, first cautiously, but as the hot water poured in with great precipitation, fairly with a snap. Waiting for a moment or so until the hot water had curled the animal quite free from its shell, the fastidious birds then partook of the savory contents, gave a few caws of grateful acknowledgment, and withdrew to make room for the next row. This changing places, cooking of provisions, and feasting lasted for half the day. By that time, the entire flock had exhausted its raw material. Then, with deafening cries and loud flapping of pinions, these feathered epicures rose into the air and disappeared as they had come. Fain would I have prolonged my stay upon the shores of Neptune's cauldron, but I observed that the steam from the waters was disagreeable to Bulger. Sorry, somebody's calling. With speaking eyes, he implored me to hoist sail and seek home, to him pleasanter land. I could not withstand that appeal, so I made a farewell survey of the egg mounds, gazed my last at the red-shelled crustaceans and chalky-eyed fish of the cauldron, and went aboard of my staunch vessel. Heading now westward, I crowded sail, intended to hug the China coast pretty closely on my homeward voyage. All went well for the first few days after leaving Neptune's cauldron. Bulger ranged the deck, playing the maddest capers. Thoughts of home now began to occupy my mind. The elder baron was growing old. I felt that I ought not prolong my voyage. He might be in need of my counsels. Suddenly, one day at high noon, the skies darkened, the wind sprang up. I thought nothing of it. It would only be a mad romp, which will serve right well to blow us along homeward. But oh, what that short-sighted creature is vain man, who thinks to read the signs of the skies, the winds, and the waves. The merry whistling of the scene soon gave place to the dismal howl of the blast. The storm fiend was stalking aboard. The startled waters now leaped wildly upon their beds, rolled tumultuously onward, whipped into foam and fury by 10,000 lashes of the blast, till, in their mad efforts to escape, they dashed upon themselves against the very clouds. The scene was terrible. 'Twas useless a command, for not a throat of steel could have drowned the wild yells of the tempest. To my horror, I discovered that we had sprung a leak. The pitch and tar, softened by the heat of the water in Neptune's cauldron, had bulged from the ship's joints and allowed the caulking to escape. Like a sheet of cardboard, our rudder was now torn from its place and whirled away on the crest of a giant billow. Behold us now at the very mercy of the storm, the plaything of wind and wave, a cockleshell fallen on the battleground of nature's wanting elements. Okay, so I think we probably read 10 minutes, yeah. But I'm going to start tomorrow where the storm starts. And today we started on page 153. Okay, So that's that. 153. I gotta remember 153. And then I gotta read this. Okay. Quit procrastinating on anything and everything. Time wasted is just that, wasted. Avoid distractions and the noises around me. Block it out. The art of continuous self-love through food, through water intake, through intentional meditation and thought. Something inside of me is superior to circumstance. Is it kind? Is it true? Does it reflect my authentic self? Focus more on money and its education. Focus more on self-discipline. See the sun, honor the moon. Forward momentum. The path out of hell is through misery. Honor my journey. We are slaves to our own incessant urges to escape the present moment. Meditate, walk, journal, stretch, love animals. Leave life to wonder all it needs. Less stress, more fairy tale. Work on bettering the love I show my body through the food and beverage I put in it. With money, it's not what you make, but what you keep. Focus. Lose any ties to victim mentality. Continue to help yourself. I had my hair up in a pony. Okay, just till tomorrow.